everybody, and welcome to this edition of Sports Talk. I'm Jimmy Allinder, and my guest is Frank Noppenberger, the Supervisor of Athletics for East Brunswick High School. And as is our tradition every time this spring, we have a go-around of the spring sports. And Frank, I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having us. And again, I thank you and Phil and all the volunteers, and especially Channel 8, for your coverage of our games and our events. Especially exciting this year is you covered boys lacrosse, we had volleyball, and of course girls lacrosse. And it means a lot to the kids. And next year we're working on possibly a night track meet that maybe you guys could help us out with.
You know, before we get into the coverage of the individual sports and a summary of each, we were talking before we came on the air about, well, we're up to 9 sports this spring. Mm-hmm. Now you're talking about adding more. Frank, have we reached a saturation point where maybe there's too many sports to get the kids involved with, even as a high school like East Brunswick?
I personally don't think so. I know that coaches have expressed a concern about that to me, that they're losing maybe the better athletes to another sport. The way I see it is there's kids playing sports now that maybe wouldn't have been involved. If girls lacrosse wasn't here, there's girls participating in that sport that never would have played another sport. We have kids on the volleyball team, I'm sure, like a Ryan Walsh. If Ryan Walsh wasn't playing volleyball, and he's a great volleyball player, I don't think he would be involved in the sport. Maybe spring track, he could be. But there's something out there for everyone, and by offering more to the athletes and the kids, it gives them more opportunities. Not necessarily scholarships or all-state, but a chance to be involved in a team and to develop some self-pride, and it gives you a lot of self-confidence too. So there's something out there for everyone if they want to be involved.
Okay. Well, you have been gracious enough, as always, to list all the coaches, the individual sports, and the records, so I appreciate that. So we're going to start at the top with baseball. The record was 12-8 this year, coached by Tom Hockenjoss. So give us a little summary about the team's success this year. It
was a strange baseball season. We would go and beat Edison, and then we'd lose a game we should win. We were just caught in one of those things all year round with baseball. The fly ball would just go out of the reach of our glove, or they would make the diving catch. It was a strange year. We had Piscataway beat at their place, and they hit a C&I pop single that just dropped in to beat us. We beat them at our place on a crazy last inning where their best player, Corey Smith, who signed, walked like 3 batters in a row. It just, I think with the weather, we just couldn't get into a good routine of playing every day, and because every time we had a rain out, the next day we weren't as sharp. I think we were a pretty good team. Mm-hmm. I know nobody wanted to play us in the counties or the states. They know everyone feared us because we, as I told you, we beat Edison, and we had experience coming back. We had a Teddy Papadopoulos coming back, who's our highest, led the team in batting. We had Steve Petersack coming back, who's been there for 4 years as a shortstop and pitcher. John Mullane's been there 2 years as a catcher, so you know, up the middle we were pretty sharp, and we were going to be good, and people knew that. And then with the Kevin Cole, a sophomore, a junior I should say, playing a good shortstop and pitching, we had the potential to go further. Okay. I'm not saying we didn't play to our potential, I just didn't think we got any breaks. Mm-hmm. But Coach Hawk and Coach Elias, they just worked as hard as they could, and the kids responded. Mm-hmm. 12-8, I wish it was a lot better, but I take nothing away from the kids and the way they played.
I think it's a good mark for the East Brunswick baseball program that maybe the expectations were a little higher than what actually happened this year, but I can remember some years back when the baseball program fell on some hard times, and the fact that it's really back to a level where it's one of the more respected programs in the county says something that for the job that Tom Hockenjoss has been doing, and just the quality of the baseball program. I know that the recreation program in East Brunswick is top-notch, right, and they continue to produce a lot of quality players for you.
Yeah, so we're pretty lucky to have the managers involved, and they back us and they sponsor scholarships for our kids. it's a good group of guys and girls on the softball end that
Sure.
volunteer their time.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next sport. Do you want to say anything more about the baseball team as far as...
If I do, I'll interject it later if that's
Sounds
all right
good.
with you.
That's not a problem. Okay, we move into the boys' spring track program, coached by Don Mandy. The record was 4-3 this year.
Yeah, Don's one of the experienced coaches we were talking about before. He's been here as long as I have, which is like 23 years, I guess, 22 years. We had a boys and girls track. We beat everyone we were supposed to on the dual meets, and then lost to the people who on paper were better. And it's been that way the last year or so. I think the highlight of the season was we had two boys make it to the Tournament of Champions, and they just did the Group 4 finals, I should say, and they did a great job in the 2-mile and the 1-mile. We had Brian Donovan, who was voted our outstanding junior athlete at our banquet, make it to the Group 4 finals in the 2-mile, and Kevin O'Reilly, who's going to the Air Force Academy, he's also our scholar athlete for the senior class. He made it in the mile, so those two kids rose to the occasion at the end and did a pretty good job. And Teddy Nemec in the sprints just had an outstanding year for us and broke a few records. Team-wise, I'm sure no one was satisfied with our performance, and it's just we just got to keep plugging away, and hopefully we'll turn it around.
How were you pleased with the number of kids that went out for the spring track team?
Had a lot of nice. We had a good number. We're in the mid-40s. Not as many as the girls, but they worked. They worked hard, and it's just you know, the coaches. Maybe it's the lacrosse and the volleyball taken away from some of those better athletes. I'm not sure, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's jump right over to girls spring track, coached by another veteran mentor, Brian Merrigan. The record was 2-4 this year.
Again, depth, but not an outstanding individual. Kim Pasva, who was our most outstanding spring athlete, probably was as good as anyone in the county. It just seemed that we didn't have the sprinters this year and the middle distance runners, or possibly even the long distance runners to get us over the edge. And it's not because of the dedication of Brian Merrigan. Brian's at all the 8th grade track meets. We take them to the sub-varsity invitationals. We're giving the kids the experience, and it's just a matter of time. When it's going to change, hopefully next year. But Jessica Coopersmith had a real nice year for us, and Allison Bluefield. They were award winners at our banquet, which we just completed.
Okay. The next sport is I guess the one that reached the pinnacle once more, and that's boys volleyball. If I can interject for a second, you have so many sports. It seems like every year one seems to rise above the rest, and of course it's a repeat this year, but the boys volleyball team once again won a state championship, coached by Scott Arnhauer. 22-2 record, and I think they avenged those 2 losses, did they not? Yeah, that's quite a remarkable feat.
Well, they've beaten everyone in the state who was any good. The 2 losses we did have, we weren't at full strength, but the other team beat us fair and square. But in the state finals, one of the most exciting events I've been in a while, we were down 13-3, came back, and then the other team had game point 9 times, that if they scored when they were serving, they would have won the game.
That was game 1?
That was the second game.
Second game.
And we already won the first game.
Gotcha.
So this would have extended it to 3.
Right.
And our kids just stayed within the game plan. And if you listen to Scott, he just said, do the things that we do best, do the things we do right, do the things we're coached. And they stayed with it. And they got the momentum going, and you know, they won it in 2. The other team was devastated, but it was so exciting, and I was so happy for Scott, who's leaving, as you know. He's going to Cherry Hill East to be a assistant vice principal down there. So although I'm happy for him, we only had him for a couple years, like 6 years. I wish we had him for a few more, only because he has taken that volleyball program in 6 short years. We've been in the state semifinals 5 years. We've been in the state finals 3 years, winning the state championship the last 2. In any sport, it's quite an accomplishment. We had some great seniors out there leading us. Mike Ressler did a great job as a leader. He had a big game in the finals. But you talk about a junior that came up big was the Chris Schuler. Chris Schuler last year against St. Joe's, and you'll recognize his name, came up big with a block against Jason Williams, the basketball player, against St. Joe's. This year, he did it again, twice this time, against the best volleyball player in the state. Had 2 outstanding blocks. He just seems to play well at the big games. We had Alex Stein, who had a real good year for us. Taras Borschik had a real good year for us. There was a lot of kids that came through in the end. Scott never emphasized one individual. Everything with him was teamwork, and it was Seb DiPietro had a good year for us. Ryan Walsh, I mentioned him before. The way Coach taught was it's a team game. And the other team, Newell was the best player in the state. Eric, I believe, is his first name. Scott convinced our kids that, the team, the 6 of them, can beat the one outstanding player. And that's why we won.
Against was it Lakewood?
Lakeland.
Lakeland.
Up there, right in Passaic, right. Bergen County.
Let me ask you this question. The names that you've mentioned, some of them are new to the scene in the sense that they had not been the impact players that East Brunswick had utilized the previous year. Right. So it's a system that Scott developed. Oh,
he's got it down, and the kids know. These kids knew that as juniors they were subs, as sophomores they watched, as juniors they were subs, and this was their year. And there's a rotation set up there now where the freshmen and sophomores know what has to be done. The juniors accept their role, and the seniors are the leaders. And it's a true program in place.
So how do you replace a coach with that type of success?
Well, hopefully we're going to attract some candidates because there's a phys ed position along with that.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be people wanting to come into that program.
Defending state champions.
Defending 2-time state champion. But it's a difficult situation, I'm sure, for some coaches that don't want to be put in there under that microscope. You're going to be compared to Scott Arnauer. And so maybe we're not getting the applicants we would have liked as a result of that. But it's got the talent, it's got the pool of talent, it's got the phys ed teachers at the elementary schools teaching volleyball the correct way, same as the middle school, same as Churchill, and then at the high school. So the kids are getting a great background. We got the parental support because they take them to the Warren Volleyball Club. And, at the game the other night, there must have been 300 volleyball parents there. Not parents, but fans, parents certainly.
Right.
And so the community's really behind the volleyball. As a matter of fact, tonight the town council and the mayor are going to honor the state champions in volleyball. And
it's very well deserved. That's great. All right, well, let's move on to the next sport. We still have 5 more to go. Girls lacrosse, coached by Jennifer Ragg. The team finished with a 3-12 record. And your comments about the lacrosse program for both boys and girls, and where it's at, what do you perceive has to be the next growing step for the lacrosse programs?
Okay. The boys have the Black Hawks in town, which is a feeder system, so they're getting some of the fundamentals in there. We'll get to the boys later.
Sure.
The girls right now, we don't have it, but what we do have with the girls is athletes. There's a lot of good athletes. There was only one senior out there. So as a matter of fact, I think we're so good next year, I think we'll be above 500 and make the states because we got the athletes out there playing lacrosse, and it's a real fun game to watch. Janine McMillan had an outstanding year. I wouldn't be surprised if she's in the top 20 in scoring in the state. So I see us doing a real good job next year in lacrosse, getting above that 500 mark and into the states. What we need is more of the local schools to get involved. We need the Edisons to pick it up. We need, South Brunswick has it, Old Bridge has it. So I guess we're the unofficial Middlesex County champ, Jim, since we beat both of them. I don't know if the newspapers or the conference would go for that. But we need, it's tough traveling all the time. Everything's a distance, or they're coming here, and we're playing against schools that have established programs. But we're good enough to be very competitive next year.
Okay. Okay, let's move to the boys, coached by Kerry Wagner, and I had an opportunity to be on the telecast of one of the games, so got a real appreciation for the hard work that goes into just preparing because it's a contact sport, if you will.
It's a contact sport, and what you're trying to do is catch a ball in a net while running as fast as you can. And like in soccer, we're successful in soccer because our youth program is so good that the kids grow up dribbling and passing off the foot. A lot of the other towns have these youth programs with lacrosse, throwing and catching, and we're catching up to them slowly with that, but that's where our weakness is in our basic skills of throwing and catching. Kerry's a wonderful coach. He's very dedicated to the kids and to the program, and talking to him before the game, he'll be telling me what's just, it's a lot like basketball. There's a lot of screening and movement, and we'll execute, but we just can't put the ball in the basket or put the ball into the net. But he's doing a good job. We got a great parental group behind him, supporting him, and I think we'll be pretty good next year. We got our goalie coming back, David Lynch.
Yes,
David Lynch.
Okay.
Good job. Rich Schaefer had a good year for us. Carl Walt had a good year. And Ryan Moglia, a senior who started out the season being hurt, gave us some quiet leadership out there. And just like the girls lacrosse, like a Shannon Miller who was an athlete, we're getting more and more athletes out there for boys lacrosse, and eventually we'll be as good as anyone. As a matter of fact, next year in boys lacrosse, we're in a new conference.
Tell me about that.
It's schools like us with brand new or relatively new programs.
Right.
We won't be going against the prep schools or the Bridgewaters that have had it for years.
Right.
And I predict, and again, not putting pressure on Coach Wigner, we could be 500 and make the states again next year, because we're going to go against Old Bridge, which we have beaten, South Brunswick, which we have beaten, and some other schools that are just like us, just starting out programs. Unfortunately, the travel is still going to be there. But I'm very excited about next year, more than any other sport, the volleyball, boys volleyball and girls volleyball next year.
Oh, okay. Golf program, coached by Bo Henning. And by the way, I should say that the boys lacrosse team finished with a 5-11 record. We didn't mention that. Golf, Bo Henning, longtime coach already. Can't believe I'm saying that. 11-2 record, and of course, one of the best players on the baseball team was also one of the best players on the golf team. Steve Petersak.
Going to Rutgers, going to get some scholarship money to play golf there. Finished second in the county. Was county champ 2 years in a row in golf.
Right.
Real fine golfer. Bo's probably the best golf coach. Bo Henning, the best golf coach in the state, and he also had Tommy McCloskey, who played baseball, do the same thing. And then we had John Kazmarek, who's an outstanding athlete, did a good job for us playing golf, and Andy Park. We're always going to be pretty good in golf. Maybe that's a result of Tamarack being so close, or the parents, or whatever, and certainly because of Bo, but we're going to be pretty good again in golf. We took a second in the county, which was disappointing to the kids. We took a second in the division, which is disappointing in them, which is good, Jim. It's because, they really believed that he could do better. And, they were disappointed. They weren't just satisfied being second. As I told Bo, as I saw him walking dejectedly with the second place thing, I said, Bo, there's 30 other schools in this county would be dying for a second place trophy.
It's true, and it's one of the criticisms that I have with the way the system is set up in the state is that you have a lot of teams playing golf now. It's a popular sport, and they pare down to the state team championships in a rather quick fashion.
Right.
I wish there was more stepping stones for teams to maybe go from, say, be divided up into 16, go down to maybe 4, so that, and then maybe those 4 would play and so forth and so on. But it's really tough. Yeah, I mean, you have to be on that day.
Exactly.
In order to be able to qualify. You have 30 teams going in for 2 spots. Am I correct?
You get 2 days, right, to get the first round and then the finals,
right.
Which Bo and I are talking about. How many Group 4s are in Central Jersey, and possibly turn that into a sectional championship, just like in any other sport. There's sectional championships.
Right.
But you've got to have a certain amount of teams to make it feasible for the state to do that. And money's not the issue. It's if there's 4 teams in Group 1 in Central Jersey playing golf, you're not going to give them a championship by winning 4. But another thing Bo and we started this year was girls golf.
heard about
We
this.
substituted a couple boys matches for the girls, and we've got girls involved, and I anticipate next year a few more matches in the following year. I think the state's going to represent or sponsor a tournament. We Bo ran a individual tournament for the GMC this year with the girls. They were involved in a unofficial state championship this year, and I think each year, and it's well overdue. There's enough girls out there that we should be playing golf.
Right.
So hopefully in the next year or so we'll have a full-fledged team with a coach for the girls, and the only hope I have is that they keep it in the spring and not move it to the fall where there's a lot of talk.
That's one of the downfalls of playing so many sports, that you only have so many athletes, and
Right.
they have to pick and choose. But golf, I guess, and baseball are one of the few sports where that's allowed.
Golf and bowling are called non-strenuous sports. You can pair those up with any other sport during the season.
Great. Let's go on to boys tennis, coached by another longtime coach, Bill Pellegrino. Finished with an outstanding, typically outstanding 14-3 record.
Right. Pell had a great year this year, and he's doing well. As a matter of fact, that record may be wrong. It may not be 14-3. It may be something like 18-1. I believe they only had one loss this year. That must be a typo.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Pell.
No problem.
They lost to the Tournament of Champion finalists, West Windsor. That was their only loss. They went through the regular season undefeated, the division undefeated, and they took a second in the flight of the conference tournament. They'll be rated #1 in the newspaper in the local area, and probably maybe as high as 17th or 18th in the state. Josh Becker played #1 singles for us this year and did a real good job. Greg Family and Greg Chin, two other athletes, and I'm picking out just a few that just were outstanding this year for us. Pell did his best job in a long time coaching this year. I've never seen so much enthusiasm and team spirit as I did with these kids, especially when they beat Bridgewater in the sectional semis at our place. It was a very hard-fought contest, and then they advanced to the state sectionals against West Windsor, and they just had too many weapons for us. But the boys tennis team, division champs for about the 4th year in a row. Great job to them and Coach Pell.
Okay. And it's one of those sports that it seems that you're reloading every year. What would you attribute tennis as one of the marquee sports in East Brunswick? Why? Why is
Well,
that?
I think we have parents that play tennis in town, and they know the importance of it, and they get them involved at an early age. And do you have to have some money to play tennis? I don't know. But I know you need lessons when you're young, and you need to play all year round. Certainly Pelly's got a lot to do with it. And certainly when you have kids like Zuckerman and Chess and Hendrickson, who were scholarship players who went on to Duke or Wisconsin and played tennis, and now are famous. Some of those kids look up to them, so there's ideal role models. I think it's a combination of it all.
That's okay. Our last sport, softball, and there's another sport that has. Again, when I was writing for the newspaper, I used to remember that it was 500 was a typical season. Not anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Jim. I'm not here to argue with you. We're always pretty good in softball, I thought. But this year was an exceptional year. As a matter of fact, the Group 4 state champion was J.P. Stevens. We played them to a 1-0 game in 23 innings. That's how close we were to being state champs.
Right.
That's how good we are. And we're very young. Lauren Genovese was our senior pitcher, had a great year for us, and she was our most outstanding senior athlete this year, as a matter of fact.
Was she now?
Yeah, she had a great, well, she's outstanding in volleyball. Great sub for Reggie in hoops off the bench and baskets, and had a great year softball, and I expect her to be like an all-county selection in softball. She was the senior pitcher, but then you look at center field, you got a sophomore. You look at in Ashley Stapleton, who led the team in batting. You look at third base, you have a freshman who led the team in homers, Valerie Staub. You look at Allison Kazar, who's a sophomore, who was our DH. Alicia Cruz, who was the best defensive player in the county, and voted by East Brunswick as most outstanding defensive player at second base. So you had a lot of good kids playing positions. You had a freshman sharing time at shortstop, which is Jill Masterton. You had a Michelle Baera playing just about anywhere, and you have a junior playing first base. So we're young, and we're going to be in the thick of it next year.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Brady, your coach, right?
Kevin Brady.
Okay, did a great job.
Yeah, and he's assisted certainly by Monteseschi, you know that name.
Absolutely.
She does a good job, and Shira Bush, sister of the first baseman. So let me tell you, softball, we're going to be pretty good next year, but I want to keep it quiet because I like to sneak up on people.
We have about 2 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and I have about 15 questions here that I'd like to ask.
I can answer them.
I'm sure you could, but is there anything that in your mind is most important in terms of information that you'd like to get out to the public as far as how the program went this year, what to expect for anything new for next year?
Well, I'm pleased that we've probably had about 6 kids get scholarships in some form or other as student athlete. And grades had a lot to do with it because they could do it in academics and in the on the field. And that August 21st is going to be here before you know it, and that's the start of the you know, the fall season. And Jim, it's like right around the corner when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches, we've had our physicals today. We're having them again tomorrow. The coaches have had their meetings. They have their summer camps and plans already ready. It's just a cycle that seems to get shorter and shorter every year. But I know when I'm sitting here in the fall with you guys, we're going to be talking about a few more championships. I just excited about them.
And how many years have you been doing this?
I think this is 12. I don't know.
You've been involved longer than that, my friend.
I think I came to East Brunswick in 1977, and I think I've been AD. This is my 12th year.
Okay, well, we'll let it sit at that. My guest has been Frank Noppenberger, the Supervisor of Athletics for East Brunswick High School. This is Jimmy Allinder. Thanks for being with us.